Okay, folks, welcome to weekly session of ST Skills. Today we are going to do a mock interview. Today we have Dippy, who is going to be the interviewer, and CS going to be the candidate, and they would be going to solve a problem. So with this, I would give the podium to Dippy and CS.
All right. Hi. So would you like to just give a brief introduction in terms of your experience and have you been designing large-scale systems?
Yeah, so I have almost 7 years of experience, and mostly from last three and a half years, I've been leading the designing with other architects on other teams. So yeah, I would say
some
decent
experience.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So so what we'll do today is we'll spend about, I would say, 35 to 40 minutes. And we'll talk about, let's see if we can design like a question answer website, right? You have heard of Quora? Yeah, so that's something we are, I'm thinking of. If you can, we can start with that.
Okay, sure. I'll start with the functional requirements, and we can see what are the major ones we want to tackle in V1 and V2.
Yeah.
So basically, we are designing a question answer service. Question answer service. And the functional requirements that I think of with such a service will have that you should be able to post a question, be able to answer a question,
right?
And you should be able to comment on answer. Do we want that? Or we
yeah, I was going to say let's leave. You can keep
that,
it, but mark it for V2.
V2, yeah. Okay. Comment on an answer is V2. Do we want to also have upvote and downvotes?
Yes, let's keep, yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, every time someone is in the waiting room, somehow the focus goes away from the answer is V2. This is V2. Okay. And do we want to do upvotes and downvotes?
Yeah.
Okay. Upvote, downvote. Do we want to do search?
Yes, we want to do search. And,
okay. What else? Do you want to do feed?
No, I think for V1, let's keep it. And maybe one other thing you can, we'll see how much time we have. But one thing I'm looking for is also when you search and you click, you get some question, right? Maybe if you can show some similar questions or recommendations, related questions sort of feature.
Okay.
You can keep it as a separate point because I don't want you to, search is the main thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Related questions, maybe. Yeah. And just to be clear, just number 6 that you wrote, search showing related questions. So you are thinking, what I have in mind is when you do a search and you get some suggestions and you click on one, and then along with that question, you are also seeing some related questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's yeah, I don't want to confuse you. Version 2 is good.
Okay.
Just, yeah.
Okay. So the now let us dive into non-functional requirements. I would expect this to be highly available.
Okay. Yeah.
I would expect this to be highly reliable as well. You don't want to lose any changes that a user makes. Consistency wise, I think having an eventual consistency works. What else?
In terms of latency, you can think of like low latency.
Okay. Low latency, like if you are searching for something, then you should get results faster.
Yes.
So yeah.
And also in terms of searching, right? I want you to think around a number 5 that you have in functional also.
Okay.
So when you say search, it should show you like sort of autocomplete thing, right? Let's say top 3 or top 5, recommendations there. That's what I mean by search.
Okay. Right? So search should also have prefix matching.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Okay, cool. Works. Then non-functional requirement, then I would want to come for estimates. Okay. So since okay, sorry, I have to keep on admitting people.
Yeah.
So estimates would be I'm expecting that Quora today has approximately 400 million users. 400 million users. Actually, what I read last was it had 300 million monthly active users. So I'll go with that and go to my daily users from there. So monthly active users are 300 million, which takes us to approximately 10 million. Per day. Yeah. 10 million users per day. And with those many users, so depending upon now what would be the QPS, right? So for queries, I would start with what will be my, for 10 million users a day, I would expect more of they will be a read heavy service, right? Most of the people will be trying to search, right? And
you can think of it as like, let's say if I give you some numbers there, right? Like you're saying, maybe like one question and one answer post by, per user, like per day, you can think of it. And maybe people are searching more. So you can think of it as like just taking a number like 5 searches per day.
Okay, so for 10 million users, you mean there are 10 million writes a day with one person? Because I feel that is if we think it's 10 million users per day, a lot of people will not be posting anything. They'll just be reading.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. So you can think, that's a good point. And I would say just think of it as about 1% are posting.
Yeah, so read to write ratio I would expect would be 10:1. So it will give us around like 9 million people reading and around 1 million people approximately writing.
Yes.
So that gives us around, and that is per day. So I will maybe keep here. It's oh my God. This is not fun.
Is there a way that, because this is, or Asim, can you control it? Because this is kind of interrupting, right? The flow.
Oh, which one, Dippy?
So like when somebody joins, right?
No, so CS could just share the browser, don't share entire screen. I think that could help. Or I can remove the waiting room then.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay, go ahead.
9 million requests per day, which when we say 9 million, let me write it more like 10 to the power requests per day, which would mean 90 requests per second. This seems low, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically the way we are estimating this is, I would say, take it as more like we are making estimations, but don't go totally even if it's low. Just think of it as, we are in general designing a large scale system. So even if numbers are here and there, we'll see.
Okay. So read for write request, if you're saying 1 million writes, so around 10 writes per day. Right, 1 into 10 to the power 6 requests per day, that would mean 10 writes per second. Then that would
and in terms of writes in general, you would also think of like somebody posting a question and somebody might also be posting an answer, right? It's like one question or one answer, but it can be both. So as an overestimate, it will be double, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but that's fine. I mean, that doesn't change the picture much.
Yeah. Okay, so let us say now we will come to what will be the size of our writes. So so basically when someone posts a question, I rarely see kind of images, right? People share like posting images on answers or questions, but images are kind of would be driving the average size of our requests higher. So I would say a write request should be around not more than 500 KB.
Okay, yeah.
500 writes. So if we have around 10-20 writes per second, so it will be 10, 3, 6, so 3, 4, 5, 6. So 10 MBs of 10 MBs of writes, a size of data per second that we will be committing to our database.
Correct.
10 MB per second, which will be like per day. It will be 10 MB into 10 to the power 5. Let's say how many?
So what are you looking for?
Per day, so that I can calculate for 365 days.
Right,
so it seems like around if there are 20 writes and 10 MBs is per second, so basically around 10 to the power 5 into 10 MB. So that kind of, I feel like 1 GB per day. That's very low.
Something like, yeah. I mean, it's just based on the numbers we are taking, but like I said, just to move forward.
Yeah, I would expect the number of writes to be around 10 GB per day. So I think our requests here calculation probably not right. Maybe out of 300 million.
I think it's out of 300, maybe something like, although we did this calculation, I was thinking around 100 million users per day. But yeah, I mean, I don't
because we are
okay.
Oh, so it's 300. Yeah,
I know. I mean, based on calculation, it would be a simple math like 10 million. That's why I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah. So so let me for since it is slow, we expect more, right? So I'll just take around 10 GB per day at least.
Yeah, that's fine.
10 GB per day, which will take us to 3.6 around terabytes. No, 360.
Yeah. It will be 3.6 terabytes
per year, and which will be in 10 years 36 terabytes, which is, I feel, is still low, but for 10 years. So expecting that we are going to keep the data for 10 years. So that is done. Now we would want to see, we have 90 requests per second and 20 requests per second there. So we know what would be our traffic load like. what else do we have to calculate? Post a question, answer a question, upvote, downvote. Okay, search. Okay, so with these, I think I can probably come up with like a high level design on how would I come up with my service. So basically, I'll have clients. Let me see if I'll have clients. So basically I'll have a client here, and that client will kind of will make a request to our service. And then there will be persistence. We'll have a database, and for a database, I'm gonna once I have the query patterns, then we're gonna get into what kind of database. So I'll make this a very simple. So okay. Sometimes you just can't write in these boxes. Okay, so this will be my Quora like service.
Okay.
And it will, again, there will be a lot of components for caching, load balancing, etc. But I'll have another service here for search. So my reads and writes will go from here, and it will be my search service, which will be different. And my search service will still use the data because all the indexing and everything will be here. So it will still use this one. What else? So basically, search queries will also go here. And then the responses will go here. Okay. So this is on a high level. This is how my service will basically work. And now we can basically discuss the database schema. Schema, what our queries will look like. So first I will have like a post request for the question, right? And that will look like, it will have a post ID. Then it will also have the user ID who's posting it. And what else? I'm thinking if I should also have the topic. Is it associated to? So some kind of topic ID.
Yeah, I mean, you can have it right now, but we are not going to get there into that.
Okay.
This design, yeah.
So because I need to bifurcate my questions into topics to be able to suggest people, right? The version 2 of search that we are talking about.
Not really. In version 2, we don't want to talk about topics, but yeah, that's okay. I mean, just to mention, right? I don't want you to get into topics.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will have post ID, user ID. I'll also have timestamp of when this, and obviously before that, we'll also want to have content. So for the content, if there are images, then we will have a service for resizing the images and finally putting them into S3. So that's the way we are gonna go for images and any like non-text data.
Okay. So
this will be my post request. The another request that I'll have will be again for answers. So basically, I feel I can use the same request for post ID, user ID, for question and answers and comments, all of them.
Sure.
So the post ID is any kind of
ID for any.
ID either for question, answer, or comment.
Yeah.
So any of these. So this will be for question, answers, and comments. The other one will be a post for voting.
Do you think you would need a little, you need not write here, just in the interest of time, but do you think for answers or comments, you would need to tweak this a little bit? Because how would you track? Yeah. So here you are having post ID, user
Okay.
ID.
Yeah. So there's something that because answers will be connected to questions and
Right.
comments will be connected to answers. So
Correct.
I will have something that would tell me what it is connected to. So maybe I would say that I will take that as a parent ID or something.
Right.
So what it kind of connects to, because question might not connect to anything, but answers and comments do. Okay. So for voting, I kind of expect that on what post the voting is being made. Post ID again, who is upvoting or downvoting, the user ID. Okay. ID, and what else?
Can you scroll?
Yeah.
Okay.
So user ID, post ID, I will also do is upvote. Basically, it tells me whether it's upvote or a downvote.
Okay.
And what else would I need? I also would need timestamp. And here I would also want to keep the size of the content, basically. So I'm thinking, how will it help me? But it's or I can. So I'm thinking if I should have separate metadata for all these different information about the post.
You mean for the images and all that?
Yeah, no, like if content is an image, right? So content can be text and image.
Correct.
Right. So I will have content as is and the link to the text, but would like the size of them size should that be information I should worry about?
I mean, how do you think in general keeping size about the content, whether it's image or text, or how are you planning to use it?
I mean, I can't think of it isn't like being a part of any query, right? But I'm thinking, will it help me internally? Like, will I ever want to have that information? Will the client will be helpful for the client to have this information of what they're gonna render?
Well, I see what you're saying. I think maybe, I mean, this
you
is
can leave it out for now,
thing, but not for
got
now.
it. Got it. Okay.
What I would, what are you also thinking about? I want to pause a little bit on your first one here quickly. So you talked about post ID, parent ID, all of that. So can you give ideas about what kind of database are you thinking?
Oh, I'm thinking a relational database for sure. I see a lot of that. I would need a lot of joins to be able to get a lot of information. So for every question, answer, and comment, I would need to know the upvotes, and I would have to keep on incrementing those upvotes. So basically something like MySQL, I'll be going it with a relational database for sure.
So you said there would be joins, right?
Yeah. On some of on some of them, I see there being joins on queries, especially on the search query. Yeah.
Right. So are you thinking of right now in your design you have, for example, for question, like, it's kind of a denormalized thing, right? You're having everything in one table. I'm just trying to think of like, is there?
So you're saying this is denormalized right now?
Right. I mean, you're putting basically you're getting everything from one table, right? Like for answers, it's not like you're having, because you would have answer related information and then you will connect it back to the question, which is fine. I mean, what you have, I'm just trying to see, is there, can you think of?
Okay. So I see that post will need this post ID, right, as a foreign key relationship here. Then my searches would need indexing of and would be querying a lot of tables. There'll be querying. So I since we are not handling topics, but that's how generally all
Sure.
these question answers website kind of arrange and
right.
organize their content.
Mhm.
Right. So that's why they are able to make connections and give you recommendations when we ask a question. So that's why I was hoping to have a different topic table.
Okay.
So for now, this is all I can think about voting. Then I can think of like a post on search. That would be like a query string, and that will basically have your search string, right?
Okay.
And this search string, you can search based. So whenever you put a search string, the search string will be based on use. Okay, so these are basically my query params, and I'll be creating my table separately. So they are just kind of my endpoints, and probably that would make more sense of what all tables that I'm looking for. So this is not table structure, just making sure there will be more tables than these requests that we see. So that is that. So there are three things, right? Posting a question that we saw, and answer a question, downvote, upvote.
I would say, just to focus our discussion, how about, I want you to think more around search feature. So if we have time, we can come back to other things. But
so
let's say I start typing, system design or something, right? And you should get top 5 suggestions based on, let's say, we can start with, frequency or base. Yeah. How many upvotes, something like that.
Okay. So, we can, I'll just quickly do the tables and we can then move to that one. So user and ID, username, and they'll be like what the user has subscribed to. So the subscribed topics, something like that. So I know what the user is interested in, etc. And that will be also play a part in the search. So user info is there, then will be topic info. So it will have a topic ID, topic name, and there'll also be like, let me keep them similar. And there'll be topic name and there'll be subtopics. Subtopic ID.
So one thing I would caution you here is, although the system in all these typical systems use all this topic information, I just want to caution you not to get too deep in your search methodology around topics, right? Because I see you coming up with subtopics and all that.
So I'll be indexing my sorry, not the user ID, the username. So the search typically I would search for question content, right? The question content and username, and we'll not be doing searches on the content of the answers or the comments.
Yeah, just the question title.
Yeah. So so I will have this post info table. We will have the post ID and the post title. So that will be something that I will be kind of indexing to be able to search post ID, and again the topic that the post is related to. So topic, it is also in the, so we are not doing the search on topic, but on Quora generally the search is also based on topic. So if you write something, they will also try to match if there is a topic available. So we are not doing it, but just to have that in our horizon, that this is a possibility. So I would kind of be topic name or title, whatever how you want to put it. I'll be indexing that as well for V2 maybe.
So why? So you said you're also indexing username.
Yes.
What is that for?
Yeah. So username. So if you can also search based on users. Like I want to know all the questions this user has ever posted or answered. So you can,
right, but that's not what we are not going into either personalized search like I think one of the areas you can apply this is personalization, right? If
No,
I'm searching.
personalized search. No, it's not a personalized search. So
No,
when
I'm
okay.
no, I'm saying that it's just a subcategory somewhere, but I would say don't worry about that in this
Okay.
example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we won't be indexing that then. So since it will be just the post title, so then that's what it is, right? We are just trying to search on the posts, the
Yeah.
questions, right? Okay.
So this is interesting. So can you elaborate a bit on when you said you are indexing on post title? How are you thinking about, let's say I'm typing, I typed system, right? So what do you have in mind in terms of how would search work?
So it will so the search string basically whenever you type something, even a single character,
Right.
my service will open a persistent HTTP connection.
Okay.
The client will open it with the server, and then you'll keep on typing, and for every word that you are typing, I'll send an API request to give you results that will match that prefix.
Right. Okay. And that is interesting. So let's talk more about that one. So where are you using your post title index there?
Yeah, so since we are gonna be searching on just the posts, so basically the title will be only for questions, answers, and comments will not have titles. So we will be just searching based on the prefix matching on the post title.
So okay, so I got your idea about prefix, which makes sense. So you're saying, are you talking about creating prefix tree on post title then?
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So that's how gonna search is gonna, and every how I'm thinking is that persistent connection is gonna time out, say every 60 seconds, right? And whenever you'll start typing again in the search bar, there'll be a new connection that will be kind of created.
Okay.
The client will create a new connection. So that's how it's gonna work.
I want to take you back to something you said earlier, right? So about prefix matching, right? So let's say you did type something and you did this prefix thing, and you got some recommendations to the user. And let's say I select one, right? And I go ahead and I, pick that one and you get the question, right? That's a simple one. So will that be, like, how would you use that? Like next time, let's say I search that again, right? How would you accommodate that information, right? I mean, you can provide recommendations based on, like we said, upwards, or it can be, popularity trends, right? How many times people have selected that question. So can you think about
okay. So yeah. So I think every time a user basically would click, so my user table can also have some information about what are the topics that the user has been searching. So basically I will kind of keep a heap on the number of times a person would search on some kind of topic or some question. Right? So let's say I would keep like last searched topics kind of a column, right? Or last search questions, since we don't have topics, or last search strings, whatever we want to call it. And then I will say the size of this heap would be, say, 10, right? So I'll store the last 10 searches, right? And
yeah. So I just want to, I'll pause you here. I think what you were talking about is I go ahead and search something, right? And you're tracking my last 10 searches.
Yeah.
Right? But I think what I would want you to think around is a little different here, right? Let's say you, me, anybody comes to Quora and I make a search, right? And based on your design, you get 5 suggestions and I go ahead and pick one, right? Now, what are you going to do next with it? Like next time, let's say another user comes in and they search for the same keyword, or same phrase.
Okay, so you're saying will I be caching the searches?
Caching would be going into optimizations, right? Yeah, sure. You can think of it that way from performance side, but
so you're saying if two people make the same kind of search string,
not just the same search string, right? After specifying the search string, you also pick the suggestion that was given to you, right? Out of 5 suggestions, you picked one. Now that became more popular, right? Let's say 5 users pick the same suggestion, and next time a 6th user comes in, so that the frequency of that suggestion has increased, right? So
frequency.
would that show
okay. So you're saying
more like popularity of.
No, so the popularity won't be so if we are going this way, then I think there is a problem, because every time I'm showing a search, I am saying that result, I am page ranking it up just because I am showing it, my algorithm is showing it, but to be, again, my search service will have this kind of algorithm which will have upvotes, downvotes, the number of clicks, views that answer would have. So that's why I made that search service different, that it will get all these information, some kind of a machine learning, right? And that will be fetched into the search service whenever that API call is made.
Yeah. So let's even go there, right? That's a good point you mentioned, right? Let's not even get into frequency and all that. Let's continue with the upvote thing. So you said you are searching, you get some suggestions, and while you're doing that, let's say a certain suggestion, right? Certain suggestion you're seeing that received 5 upvotes. So suddenly it's, upvote count is increased.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to go into concurrency and all that, but all I'm trying to narrow it down to is your upvote or whatever your metric for, ranking those is changing, right? So how would you account that in your design?
So you mean when the upvotes or downvotes change, how would I change my search results?
Right. For the next time you come.
Okay. Yeah. So whenever this happens, there is kind of a algorithm for my search algorithm that would have this as a parameter of that. If I have 10 questions matching this substring, the next would be sorting based on upvotes. Right, and I will query my database to see which of those questions have the most upvotes, and then sort them before getting the result. Yeah,
sure. So yeah, so what you're saying is, okay, you get the upvotes and then you query your relational database. But do you think we can do better there? Because first of all, do you see problems in your query design there if you query your relational database like this? So let's start with writing a very simple, what kind of query you will write on your database? Something like a select, star, whatever, from this, and you would order it by upvotes or something like that.
Yeah.
And you pick, let's say, top 5.
Oh, so okay. So you're saying that the upvotes and downvotes will be constantly changing. Right?
Yeah, I mean, they can change, right? Like, so next time you come in, upvotes are different for the same word or same question. So maybe just to give you a hint of what I'm trying to get to is, can you think about this database or even data structures, right? What kind of data structures can we leverage?
Yeah, so my every kind of read query, I imagine will be happening on a snapshot, on a serializable snapshot. So snapshot isolation is a kind of a way to be able to manage these constantly changing attribute values in your database. So I'll have so there'll be snapshotting of my database, and every read query will be kind of running on that snapshot. And my database will be like free to kind of be able to make like writes. So I won't be blocking my writes.
Fine. Yeah, that is a good point. So I'm okay with snapshot, right? You are having a working copy, sort of a static, image of that. But how about even if you go with your snapshot design, you have a word and it has 10 upvotes, right? And then you select suggestion, and now its upvote has gone to 11, let's say, right? And now just in the same time frame or the next second, another person comes in and they, select the same, use the similar keywords, and they get similar suggestions, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So there can be a lot of factors to whenever there is a tie. Basically, you're talking about whenever there's a tie in results, what I'm going to do.
Right. Some overlap, and how would you affect the ranking?
So there can be something like in the user info, I can have introduce something like a rating of the user, right? So whenever I am putting the results out there and their upvotes are same, everything is same, I'm going to take into consideration what is the user's rating, right? Whether that user is and that rating again will be kind of a algorithm which calculates if the user is kind of been the answers have been upvoted a lot, the questions would have been upvoted a lot, right? And Quora also uses something like you kind of tell Quora if you are an expert in some field. So
I think that's a different segue. That's more like your credibility, right? What's your you're talking about how much you would rate if an expert is answering a question that is given,
Oh, so I think what this is what I understand. You want me to go in the direction of that if from a list of results, if a question has been kind of clicked more, then I should show that as a tiebreaker in the result.
Right. Yeah. I mean, how would you update update your suggestions?
So every time a user will click on a question, right, from the results, so there will be a get request going, right, to get the contents of that post, right? We haven't discussed that, but that will be kind of a get request that I see, which will be for a post ID, right? And that will have all this information about what is the content.
Sure, that's
right?
fine.
Right. It will have all that information. So also on the post ID, I can probably have this on my table, which says the clicks, right? Counting the clicks. And I know these counters generally have problems, right? Because they are always updating. But for that, I think I would need to take a very kind of I would have to take a write lock on that object to be able to update that. So no other.
Do you think you can use an auxiliary, some data structure, to map the, let's say, search string and the number of,
but it has to be persistent, right? If I have to take that into account, that cannot be just my that data structure can be a part of my application code, but it has to reside somewhere in the database.
I mean, that is you're right. You have to persist it, otherwise, but that is another segue about how
so I can probably have a hash map kind of. I can maintain a hash mapping of a post ID and the number of clicks, right? I can always have that.
Right. So I think we have few more minutes. So what I want to, I like the idea. So you have at a bare bones post ID and clicks, right? And you also talked about a prefix thing, right? Structure that you'll use for your search. So keeping these two data structures to now having in mind, what do you think would be the flow, right? Let's say a search string comes in. Can we just,
you draw it? Yeah, okay. You need to draw or talk?
I mean, you don't need to. I think I just want to save your time also there.
Sure.
But maybe if we can talk aloud. So let's say you have a prefix tree, and you said you have a hash map, right? And let's take a very simple word. I don't know, something like system design, something like one word, right? And so you have a prefix tree, and user comes in and they start typing S, Y, S, right? Stuff like that. So can you walk me through the flow using these two data structures you came up with?
Okay. Yeah. So so it will be like kind of a try, right? Data structure that I think of when I'm doing this prefix matching, right? And at every character typing, I will send an API request, a GET request for all the matching kind of topics, question titles, right? And these question titles will also have this kind of a, so every question title is kind of a post ID, right? And I'll fetch the post ID of all these suggestions and have the and get the number of clicks from that hash map, right? And I'll sort my results in order of those clicks.
Right. Okay, this is good. So do you see, what do you think can be the bottleneck in this design? So you have a try and you have your, try setup and you have your hash map. I like the idea you said, okay, given a search string, you'll use your try to fetch the related posts, right? And then based on your, hash map, you will rank them and you will get the user top 5. Is there a way that you can think of optimizing that bit? Like, where do you think, first of all, is the bottleneck?
So for bottleneck, I am not sure, because I see hash map has a O of one, of one fetch time. So that's not a bottleneck, and even try would be like log n, right? For the prefix. So I don't see typically, but what I
how
see,
about, go ahead.
What I see changing is the number of clicks constantly on that hash map, right? So
but how about, can you think, I think we'll just spend a few more minutes, maybe 5 more minutes, but can you think about, you're saying when you have to rank them, right? You have to give the user top 5, whereas you are making a trip to the database to fetch all of them. And then you are ranking.
Yeah, so I think I will kind of have this hash map in my memcache, right?
Which hash map?
This hash map of the post ID and number of clicks.
Sure, that is fine. But how would you think about just giving top 5 quickly? Right now, from what I understand in your design, you are, whenever you get a search string in your try, you are making a trip to the database to fetch all the matching, which have those prefixes.
Yeah, I get it. I think I'm going to have something like a heap, right? Something like
That's
a priority queue.
Sure.
Which will be like, which will have this
sort of like
post ID
5
and the clicks and the top 5. Yeah. And I'll prioritize on the clicks part of it.
Right.
So I can have the, a custom comparator on my clicks, number of clicks, and sort them. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. I think just to keep time in check, I think this looks good overall. Any things that you want to mention just to wrap it up? Overall, it looks good to me.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I think it's good. Yeah, we discussed a couple of areas. I think we can wrap it up here unless you have any other comments.
Yeah, I think if you're good, we're good. Yeah, we couldn't get to the low level design, but yeah, it's
that's fine.
Good to search on the, discuss on the search service. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, all right. I think we are going to open it up for questions. Maybe I can share, some points from what I have in mind.
Thank you, Dippy and CS. So, CS, would you still share your screen so people can chat or comment around?
Oh, sure. I'll share it. Give me a second. Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, maybe we can start with you, like CS, like what do you think, what was your assessment, right?
Yeah, I think what I felt was I should have been able to start with the search kind of thing before. Like, again, going back to the point, we should pick up where our interviewer wants us to go and be able to do all the things needed faster. So if we if we were able to get into the search discussion, we probably would have more. I felt like I took like one or two nudges from you on where you want me to do, but I kind of picked up at some point and was able to take from there. So that I felt okay about. I think again from our discussion, the table structure kept on kind of evolving, but that is okay. That's how in normal life we do that in our normal designing sessions, that the more query kind of patterns we come up with, we keep on updating our database schema, adding tables or adding columns or adding indexes. So that is okay perfectly. So yeah, it was a good experience. You were able to tell me what you want. You were clear about where we should go in detail, and yeah, it was a good experience. Thank you, Dippy.
Sure. So yeah, no, thank you. I think this was in general also a good question, a little different from the typical ones that we see online. So just a couple of points I noted. Talking first about, as an interviewer, right? What I thought that I could have, something to keep in mind is maybe like in the search feature, when you were taking down notes for even the functional requirements, I later on felt that I could have been a little more precise there itself about, okay, we are going to search by, let's say, popularity or timestamp. But on the other side, I also kept it a little open because I wanted, to see it coming from candidate also. And also to later on, like you tweaked your design, right? Which was good to see how you are, how flexible your design is and how you're thinking around. But coming back to, in general, how you approach the question, switching sides there. One thing I felt that I haven't actually categorized my feedback here. I have just taken points. So they may be here and there. Going to database design, I felt that when I tried to poke you on the relational normalization aspect, a lot of times I saw you going towards topics, right? Which is very relevant when you think of these systems in real world, right? Quora or Stack Overflow, all of these. But I would like others to also chime in on this, once I'm done with the feedback. Is this something we should be kind of going after? Because you may be given a system which is completely like, let's say, you're not very familiar with. Because I was afraid in between that you're bringing topics, these subtopics, and you're thinking about your search with respect to topics somewhere. So I had to kind of bring you back that don't, mix it up for that, because I think search design can be a little different if you also include topics. So just something to keep in mind. That was my reading of it. The other thing was, I think you picked up some good ideas about, I liked your estimation part. You were pretty quick, right, in coming up with what all metrics you want to come up with. So that was good. And you also picked up some ideas about not all users will be posting questions and all of that. So those were good ones, right? I'm not sure if everybody would be able to just jump on that right away. What other things did I note here? Let's see. The thing you mentioned, right? You try to look forward and think about 1 year estimation would be this much, and maybe 10 years would be this. So it is good to be a little more forward looking. I like that part. And also the microservice aspect was good. So yeah, and let's see, I was having something else here. Yeah. I just have in general few suggestions in terms of how I am looking at the system design, how we can structure our thought. So nothing more around, you did something wrong. It's not about wrong, but it's more about helping to structure your thought, right? So you came up with API design, you came up with database, you had a high level structure, and we discussed search heavily. Maybe you can also structure it around, okay, how much storage I need, right, for my database, which you already calculated upfront. But just to put it like that, because that will help the interviewer to say that you have check marked all these boxes, right? You're thinking about storage and just putting it out there, but you already did the estimates. I'm just saying it aloud like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah. And what other things I had? I mean, it's just that there were a lot of other things that I had in mind, but again, the timing is tough, right? If I would have directly told you that let's focus on search, then we could have gone that way. Yeah, I think those were some things I noted. But overall, I liked your, you were going in a, I felt that you had confidence in what you're talking about and around what you're thinking. But in system design in general, I feel it can be confusing, right? To read other person's mind and see what they are trying to get to. So that's, I think you did pretty well overall. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dippy. Is there anything else you want to share?
Not really.
Okay. Probably like when people will give their feedback, and if you have something else.
Yeah. I mean, I saw some comments going around, like when we were discussing this question, there were some comments around, oh, maybe we can poke questions around, we can nudge her into comments on comments or, those recursive things. But that is something I initially mentioned that we don't want to get into.
Like
So
that's
that,
totally fine, Dippy. Like as an interviewer, it's your call. So
right.
I won't get too much distracted around that. But yeah, I would like to ask other folks for their feedback or any questions they have in that regard.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I liked the session. I really enjoyed it. I think maybe I have a question for the interviewer, right? So the focus was more on the search rather than the data modeling for the posts itself, right? Is that that's what I sensed out of the interview?
Yeah, I was more like after a while when she came up with schema, I just to scope out things, right? Because search itself, in my mind, I was thinking that search will let the candidate also talk more about data structures involved. There were a lot of optimizations you can think around it. So I just drafted that in my mind, I had scoped it that way. But definitely depending on where you want to take it, I think it can be.
Yeah, right. So one thing is like for the way that we are modeling for storing the posts in terms of questions and answers, I think we didn't go deep into that. So right, because when people search for some questions, right, so or even listing for some questions, the way that we are modeling the data, the way we are storing each question and answer, I think we touched base on it, like bringing in parent ID and having some kind of hierarchical relationship between questions and answers. I think it's there, but I still see the likes and dislikes kept in a separate table. I'm not sure if that could hurt the performance at the time of querying all the posts, right? So that one concern I had, but I think since the interview went in the direction of search, probably the interviewee didn't had much time to focus on that, right? So that was one thing I wanted to talk about. And another thing is like, since the focus was more on search, probably I'm thinking maybe there's no one right answer, right? So I think the interviewer expectation was to come up with some kind of inverted index or some kind of, because the same database which is used for serving the questions and answers may not scale well when you add more indexes. And moreover, in MySQL, I don't know whether it can support inverted index kind of thing. So probably I think interviewer was expecting that you need to have some kind of
No, actually, yeah, actually, that's a
Elasticsearch
good
or
point.
something.
Yeah, actually, that is a very, very good point you brought up. So I wasn't expecting her to, if she would have brought that up, that would have been very valid. But that would also, I had another follow-up question on mind, because all these Elasticsearch, full text search, and this autocomplete things, right? There are some differences there, right? If she would have come up with that, I would still, at least for this interview, because in my mind, I felt that this prefix thing, right, and hash map and optimizations around it has a lot of scope for judging the candidate along different areas, right? It is data structure, it is optimization, distribute. If we had time, I would have taken her into optimizing that flow, right? But Elasticsearch and inverted index, very valid ideas. And if the candidate brings it up, it's a good, I would say, good thought process there.
And
Yeah, I still.
And there was one question on how do we get into the feedbacking, right? Like if there is a kind of question trending, if there are many people who are viewing that, so there should be a way of feeding back into the system.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So probably we could have thought of some kind of logging and some kind of offline.
No, actually,
analytics.
I'm sorry, I keep interrupting. Go ahead.
Yeah, this was my idea, but probably people can think of in different ways. So where we could have logged each and every search the users are making, and then do some kind of offline analysis.
Yeah, I was thinking of around hash map she's using, right? My idea was tweaking more into that she has a try, right, that she is using for searches. And I liked how I overall in the whole interview, except like I said, she was nudging towards topics quite a bit. Leaving that part, I think she picked up the ideas quite, well, when I gave her hints. The top 5, right, I mentioned to her, and she was able to pick up heap, right, come up with a heap idea. That was neat. The thing I had in mind, and others can join, right, what I had in mind in terms of updating, right, like you said, there are more upvotes. So how do you feed that information back? So a simplistic idea is you are consulting hash map, right, for figuring out the upvotes or popularity frequency, let's say. It would be quite expensive. Let's say I go from 10 to 11, right, in terms of frequency or whatever my metric is. It would be quite expensive if I say, okay, every time there is a frequency change, go back and update my try heap, right? Heap in my try data structure. So one idea could have been that you could accumulate, that because, we are designing a highly available system. It's eventually consistent, right? So even if an upvote has increased by 2, right, and you do not see that right away, that is still not that big of a issue, versus if an upvote has suddenly increased by a certain threshold, right? So that can save your, communication, right? That can save you some latency. And there are a lot of, I think there are also idea around sampling that you can use, but yeah, I mean, those are going very deep technical, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a valid point. When you say hash map, I think you need to have some kind of central place to capture multiple things, right? Are you talking about hash map on one system, or
no. So you're right. So now we were just talking about, just come up with the basic design, right? Data structure. But when you start talking about distributed, how would you shard it, right? Like you said, you can't just have it. You can't even have try on one system, right? You can't just hit one system for that. So you would need to adapt your prefix tree, define shard keys, right? That is another area to go into. But yeah, I mean, we didn't even touch there. We were right now just thinking about core data structures. But those will be very interesting discussions as well. I think from that perspective, I feel like if I would have just maybe steered her into search upfront, that would have given her more time. So Yeah.
I think overall it was good. I think both of you did a great job. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
No, thank you. Thanks for all that feedback.
And I have a question about the non-functional requirements. Like, did we cover all the non-functional requirements here?
So what else were you having in mind?
Yeah, we were looking for more of a high-level design. I think we went down search into much more lower-level design, like how do you scale up your system? Yeah, how do you do sharding? Because
Yeah. I mean, we just ran out of. I mean, that's what, right? Like distributed would have been a whole very interesting discussion, but we didn't get there. Yeah.
Sure. And also, like the interviewee, like he mentioned the non-functional requirements on their own. So do you think the interviewer, like the interviewee has to ask the interviewer about this, or?
I think in my view, first coming up with your idea, right? Let's say she came up with highly available. One thing, as you are mentioning now, maybe what I should have done is asked her, like, why not consistent, right? Because in my mind also, I had it as an AP system, not a CP. So I did not ask her. But I think in general, even as a candidate, if you come up with your own thought process, but maybe explain it a bit, that's my opinion. But all of you, like, I think who have more experience on this design, you can talk more.
Yeah, I think it's recommended that the candidate comes with both functional and non-functional and ask the questions based on that as well.
Okay.
That's what I see over there.
So when you say ask questions, right? Let's say we are on non-functional requirements. If the candidate says, okay, are we designing it available or consistent? Is that a question candidate?
Yeah, that's going to be a question to the interviewer. So what expected of it as well, whether you want to be. So I can tell it is highly available, but yeah. Can I go with highly available system?
Yeah, something like that, right? Like, can I go with highly available because of this, right? And then if the interviewer says, no, I want consistent. Then I think overall when she was writing, sort of, maybe I was just quickly giving her like, yeah, that's fine. So that made her continue, but yeah.
Yeah, but overall, it's like both of you did a very good job.
Yeah, I like the estimation part, which was very quick because that's why most of the interviews that I attend, they look keen into how much trying to estimate and how you're coming up with the sizing, right? Based on the sizing.
I think I really liked her. It was pretty seamless how she just thought through different ideas here. Yeah.
I have a question on the autocomplete stuff.
On sorry?
The autocomplete one.
Yeah.
So the autocomplete is actually for the search query, right?
Right.
Okay, and then the actual search algorithm is based on so the autocomplete will retrieve us based on the previous search queries, isn't it? Like so.
Right. You can have different metrics, right? Like you said, it can retrieve us suggestions based on trending stuff or upvotes. Like, I mean, that is another, right, flexibility of design, that I can have a drop down, right, which says, give me suggestions by popularity or whatever. And then when you click on, that's that.
That's okay. That's for the autocomplete one. So when the user then, let's say we finish the autocomplete, right? Let's say the keyword that the user is trying to search for, right? And then the actual search will be performed based on an inverted index.
That is, I think both ideas are relevant in my opinion, but I think you don't need two different ideas, right? When you say actual search, right? When you're doing autocomplete, even then you're doing a search there, correct?
So like, for example, the way this works in Google search, right? Like say,
Google search is a little different from Google autocomplete. You're right.
Yeah, right. So the autocomplete is purely based on what the user generally searches for, right? Let's say, I would search for a keyword, like during the elections for Trump or Obama, right? So that kind of thing, right? So that system completely relies on a different set of data to basically give me the set of suggestions that is basically the keyword query, right? Like, so what user queries, but the actual search is done on the corpus, which is basically, in this case, the actual search is basically the keyword has to be mapped to a set of questions, right? Which is the actual corpus for whatever system that we are building. So in this case, in this case, the corpus is actually the set of Quora's questions that we want to basically bring up, right? Like, so they are like two different systems even here, I believe.
Okay, that's good to
Like,
clarify.
is it safe to say that the result that you get from the autocomplete is would highly likely it's like
the result is it's just the query, right? Like, so like let's say I search for Trump, but Trump will have nothing to do with an actual the question would be like, who is Trump, or the question would be like, you know, like, is Trump a good guy, right? Like, those are the questions, right? But the search query is completely different. It's purely based on, you know, whatever the users are actually searching for.
You're right.
Yeah, I think we need to have two separate systems. One for auto completion, another for
the actual search.
Inverted index based searching.
Yes.
I agree with that.
And the inverted index is what we'll use Elasticsearch for. So that is the system for Elasticsearch, right? And the autocomplete is what we use for tries, right?
No, that's a very clear distinction I was getting, but that's I agree with that. Like, auto completion is try.
One more thing that so I also faced the similar sort of question in an actual interview. So there the interviewer here we went into the search feature, which was also very quite good for discussion. So there the interviewer took me into the actual schema as well as the selection of the database. So he was actually hinting me that for some of these queries, you can actually get away with a very good optimization using column oriented and some using row. And he wanted to actually see to which extent I could identify how we can optimize using both these sort of relational database. So that discussion is actually also like one of the very in-depth discussion that this question actually has in itself.
Actually I didn't think around that way, but it is very interesting. Like when usually in system design articles or anywhere, I just see people just saying RDBMS and that's it. But even in RDBMS, you can talk about column oriented, right? Analytics you're talking about, and you can talk about hybrid schemes. And one thing I noticed that when I gave her number 6 functional requirement, I mean, it was version 2 thing, right? But if we had time, right, this also gives a hint towards maybe something like a graph auxiliary. We can maintain something like related stuff, right? We can have connections there, but I mean, that's a very good point if we want to get into that database zone, right?
Because for my entire interview, it just went on the designing schema and then optimizing it to the point. So it is also a very good discussion area, actually.
Good point.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these system designs would also depend on which company and which team you're interviewing for, right? If it's something like let's say a database team, they might go that would be very directly relevant to them, right? But that's a very interesting thing, like going deep into RDBMS. So Shreyas, I think Jaya also has a question, but I'll just quickly answer Shreyas one here in the chat. So about system design for Quora, I found few articles and CS, like you might have reviewed some, right, for preparing this. If you have any that you can share.
Yeah, I actually found just one very like elaborate document, and that was from 2011.
Okay.
I didn't find anything very new. Even on Quora, I didn't find anything for Quora architecture. Like someone has answered that question. So that's why I had to look for what are the latest numbers, etc. Because at the time this blog was written, they were not even 1 million users Quora had.
Right.
So, so that was, but it was very, very kind of surprising to not find anything recent about their changes. The document said they use MySQL, they use Python, and they use C++ for areas where Python is slow. So they it described those things. It described long polling on those search queries. That every character sends a API request, and even if you type fast, it would be the same number of requests, and they don't cache the search queries. So that's what I learned from that. They use Thrift to bridge different texts. And what else? Memcache, they use Memcache. So we never got time to get into the low-level design, but I would have explained all this in the low-level design. And I can actually share that link to that blog.
So when you say low-level design, right? Like all these Memcache, these are like specific services,
No, not
right?
Memcache, but basically I would have said there would be a cache like a Memcache. So that blog mentions Memcache. You don't have to mention Memcache in a low-level design. Right, but you do mention Proxy and Nginx. You do mention
okay,
load
that's what you meant by low level, like detailed design.
Yeah,
I
detailed
thought
design.
When you said low level, I thought something like classes and all that.
No. Like having all those components that will have replication, that you'll have a cache, you have a CDN, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, each of them, I took some notes, before this interview. I prepared some notes. So each of them, at least I got, a couple of ideas, like sharding itself. I felt that could be discussed independently. But it's an interesting question.
So the sharding was mentioned based, I think, not very clearly, but they said they shard on user ID. But again, we have seen that sharding on that gets us to like hotspots problems. So do we shard on
no, actually it would have continued, like we narrowed down to data structures, and then talking about, in my mind I was like, okay, sharding on, let's say, prefixes, right? Let's say all things starting with A will be on 1. Of course that won't be a good design, because thinking around, like, I was progressing that way. But what I mean to say is that each of those, sharding, replication, balancing read writes, and I also was trying to, in my mind, I also had this idea that although this seems like read heavy, right? But if you look at your data structures, right, depending on how you implement it, we are talking about whenever you have an update on upvotes, or let's say how many people are clicking it, you're also updating your, let's say, hash map, and you're also updating the top 5 in your tribe, right? So somewhere you're also internally doing, your writes are getting multiplied.
Got it. Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, this is whole different technical deep dives we can go.
I wanted to actually discuss, maybe if someone can, the idea that you mentioned about having distributed, try kind of data structure, or inverted. I don't know much about inverted index, so can someone just give a brief on what it is, and some service that uses it right now? What are the pros and cons? That will be helpful. Anybody?
So any search is actually based on inverted index, right? Like, so if you want to search any set of, let's say, set of documents, or any kind of set of corpus, right? Like, so then the way there are basically, they basically make it as, I think one is, there to a couple of ways to build the inverted index. I think document-based partition and then term-based partitioning. They use those two ways, but essentially what an inverted index is, let's say you have a document, right? And then you have a list of documents, and now you want to give a keyword, and then you want to find essentially the list of documents that contain the keyword. So what you do is, like, you when a document is basically ingested into the inverted index system, you basically look at all the keywords in the document, and then you say, okay, when you build a reverse kind of an index, right? So which is like, okay, this particular keyword is contained in, this is the list of documents. right? Like so the reason it's called inverted index, because like you're actually indexing the documents, but when you finally store it, you're basically storing the documents as the result set, and then the keyword is basically the terms.
Yeah, and here the documents would be her question titles.
Exactly, the list of basically every question. For I think maybe if every question is considered as a post, they have a post ID, right? Like so that so we'll have a keyword, whatever that keyword is, right? So let's say interview is a keyword, so we'll have the interview keyword, and then there'll be a list of post IDs which actually contain that particular keyword. That's
one other question on this. Do you think, on continuing with this inverted index idea, that mentioning something around, so for example, if I type run, right, there might be a question which involves the word running, for example, right? So that can also show up. I mean, depends on where interviewer wants to take it. But I was thinking that would it be good to mention that all the, let's say, related words, if there is a service which runs behind the scenes, which actually clubs those related words, and the kind of data structure I was thinking was something like union find, right? You can just run and come up with clusters of related words. And then even if I'm searching for, let's say, system, and the word systems, like, or something related, system programming, they are all in the same cluster, right? Then I should search for top 5 amongst all of them, like the questions related to all of them.
Yeah, so the follow-up question is also that, these clusters have kind of a cluster center and a cluster diameter, right?
Yeah, centroid.
How far you want to go in that, right? So
oh, this question is pretty interesting, more interesting than I thought.
That running, I think they use this thing called stemming, right? Like so.
Stemming.
Yeah, right. Like so, they do this tokenization.
Exactly.
And then they do the stemming, and then they avoid all these stop words kind of thing, right? Like so, and all those things. So, and then they basically find. I think in the stemming, they usually convert the word to its root.
Yeah. Okay.
So
that makes
would
sense.
take care of So that
got
would
it.
yeah, but your synonym. If there are synonyms, for example, let's say if I'm searching for question, and then let's say there's a synonym for a question, there's a different word that describes a question, right? So that might be a little bit
tricky. So that blog said that if you misspell words, Quora doesn't get you those results. Like so, for example, it doesn't do an n-gram searching. So I don't know if they do it now, but they don't do it.
I think the way I'm looking at all these ideas is, of course, even if you had time, right, no matter how much, like even if you're given full hour, it's hard to discuss all the ideas. But the way I am taking these ideas is for me to make a list of these are the things that I can mention, right? And that shows the thought process, that what are sort of the edge cases we talk about, right, in algorithms. At least it gives an insight about I'm thinking out aloud, and I'm thinking of different areas, and then wherever interviewer wants to steer me, we can narrow it down there, because in general it might be hard to come up in the interview.
I have a question actually. So just a quick one. We just discussed that how would we categorize questions, right, based on the topic. So it's not that the user is going to provide the topic and we have to generate. And a very good example was just someone said if someone searches Trump, so it might be that and it would change based on the context. So if it is an election time, right, so highly likely questions should be related to the elections one. And if something he has said in the news, then so we had someone chiming in that we can have something called tokenization and stemming, all those things. So like how would you store that information? So like is it going to be like having a post ID with all the related topics in it,
I was thinking,
how would you connect those two things actually?
In my mind, like I think topics is one idea, right? We'll have something like to categorize and say where it falls. And another area, what I was thinking as you were mentioning this, is like localization, right? If I'm depending on where I'm searching, if the request is coming from, I don't know, like US, right? and it's an election time going on here, then searching for, let's say, Donald can lead to Donald Trump last year, and then depending on if it's coming from, let's say, India, how would the search be impacted? All those things, right? Like categorization. What's the origin of my request, right? What topic, what category is it in?
From a high level point of view, like even if we are categorizing it, so it's highly unlikely that a question would come inside one category. It would span across multiple categories. So how are, like, how should we approach towards saving that behavior, that this question, let's say the Trump one, right? It can be in the category of politics, it can be in the category of elections, right? So like how can we preserve that relationship or something like that? So
just thinking on the top of my head, and others can chime in, that maybe providing search results with respect to categories, like, I should also include like topics or categories.
So topics also have subtopics, right? So if you have a question about history, in your feed on the right panel, it will give you Europe's history or India's history as well. So that's how they kind of link things. So basically you would want to be able to link, and I know they use SQL, but all these linking makes me feel they should be using a graph database. But I don't know what are the cons. The query time a graph database takes.
I think the way I would argue about RDBMS versus graph, even if you have relations, is the number of hops you're talking about. If you're talking about one hop queries, right? Like, let's say, what's your nested structure looks like. Usually in graphs, the main merit of graph databases is you can have n level connections, right? And everything is, the edges are all materialized, so you don't have to do joins. But if you know that, say, you have a topic and a subtopic, and that's pretty much it, depending on the design or the service, right? To me, it's more of a question of how deep is kind of hierarchy supported.
So if you ask a question on Quora, it asks you to put a topic or select a topic today.
Okay.
So that's how they know which topic it is. And if you do not, I think they put it based on your strings matching or something.
Yeah,
topic.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, that let's say if I don't specify a topic and I search something like, let's say, orange, right? Orange is a color, and it can be a fruit. So if I have those two spaces, like food and, let's say, color, right? Maybe my search result, depending on what the interviewer says.
No, not the search. Just when you ask a question, you have to do a topic, not in the search. It's like they give you an option, but for searches, searches can be like open.
Okay. But you're saying, okay, go ahead.
I just pasted the Quora engineering page.
I saw that link. Yeah. Thanks.
I think it's the recent one on that. Okay. I think it got updated in April 2000.
I think there was somebody raising her hand, Jaya, and I think she has left. I missed.
And I have a question. So, like, we didn't have any like login, right? Like, why did we have like a user ID in this specific design? Like, normally, like, if you take like login service or anything like that, then we might have user ID.
No, but I think in general, in this requirement may not be, but in general, right, in Quora or any other service, we like who posted the question, right? Or like she was alluding to in her design, if the question is posted by, you can have your own ranking, right? User expertise ranking, sort of.
Yeah.
So you like, go ahead.
Yeah, there is also an option of anonymously posting a question, but Quora would know your ID. No one else would see, but they would know.
Yeah.
Like for this design, like it was not discussed in the functional requirements that like needed some kind of login.
No, I think there is an inherent assumption that whenever a user will come in, you will have a unique identifier for that user.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like, how did you like choose like a no SQL or a like a no SQL database? How did you make those determinations? maybe it's a basic question, but
That why is a SQL? I just based on what I read.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
One other idea I would have is, let's say, so in this case you had read, right, MySQL and relational, but how I have approached this question, like if somebody asks which choice of database you would have, I have certain metrics, right? In general, my relational database, unless I have a very clear answer of why NoSQL would
that's true.
would benefit. I don't want to jump to NoSQL just because it's popular these days. So I want to justify my reasoning, and for example, this point that somebody brought up, that if I could have mentioned in analytics, designing some analytics system, if I come up with column-oriented store, that shows good knowledge of my databases rather than just jumping on NoSQL, right? If it justifies, by all means, but have to talk aloud. Like graphs in terms of connections totally make sense. Things like that.
Yeah, sure.
I'll stop sharing now unless someone wants me to keep sharing.
No, thank you. This was really good. I mean, I myself learned so much, and yeah, I hope you had a good experience as a candidate, because I'm not somebody who takes system design interviews.
Yeah, thank you both. Yeah, it was a really good experience for us also.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dippy, and thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Asim will stop recording.